Waitress serves Barron Trump and Donald Trump, sees note on check and bursts into tear. Emily sighed as she wiped down a table, her feet aching from another long shift. She had been working here for 3 years, but tonight felt particularly exhausting. Bills were piling up and her daughter's medical treatments weren't cheap. Still, she pushed through. She had no other choice. Then the front doors swung open. A hush fell over the room. Customers turned their heads, whispering in surprise. Emily glanced up and froze. Walking into the restaurant, dressed in a crisp suit, was Donald Trump. Beside him, standing tall yet reserved, was his son, Barron Trump. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had served celebrities before, but this was different. A nervous energy rippled through the restaurant. Some guests pulled out their phones, others whispered among themselves. But Emily had no time to process. Her manager was already hurrying toward her. "Emily, you're taking table 7. Her stomach twisted. That was their table. She swallowed hard, grabbed a menu, and steadied her breath. She had a job to do. As she approached, Trump glanced up, offering a polite nod. Barron did the same. Emily forced a smile. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome. Can I get you something to drink?" She had no idea that by the end of this meal, her life would never be the same. Stay tuned until the end. I hope you love it. Emily had worked at the restaurant for 3 years, but it felt like a lifetime. Every night was the same. Long shifts, difficult customers, and the constant fear that one mistake could cost her a much-needed tip. She wasn't just working to pay rent, she was fighting to survive. Outside of work, she was a single mother to her 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was her entire world. But being a mother came with heavy responsibilities, and for Emily, that meant putting in as many hours as possible to provide for her. Lily had been diagnosed with a rare medical condition the year before. It wasn't life-threatening, but the treatment was expensive, far beyond what Emily could afford. She had tried everything: extra shifts, cutting back on groceries, selling old belongings, but no matter what she did, she was always one step behind. Tonight, before leaving for work, she had kissed Lily on the forehead as she slept. She had whispered, "Mommy's going to work hard for you, baby." But deep down, she felt like she was losing the battle. As she stood in the restaurant, watching Donald and Barron Trump settle into their seats, she forced herself to stay calm. They were just customers. Important ones, yes, but still just people. She didn't have the luxury of being starstruck or nervous. She had a job to do, and more importantly, she needed that tip. What she didn't know was that tonight's tip wouldn't just cover her shift. It would change her entire life. Emily took a deep breath and walked toward table 7, balancing her notepad in one hand and a forced smile on her face. She had served wealthy customers before, but never anyone like this. Donald Trump sat at the head of the table, his presence commanding yet surprisingly relaxed. Beside him, Barron Trump sat with perfect posture, scanning the menu with quiet focus. Unlike his father, he wasn't drawing attention to himself. He seemed content just to observe. Emily cleared her throat, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome. Can I get you something to drink?" Trump looked up, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then he gave a small nod. "I'll take a Diet Coke." Barron glanced at Emily and offered a polite smile. "Just water, please." Emily exhaled, relieved. They were polite, not demanding or dismissive like some of the rich customers she had served before. "Coming right up." She turned and rushed back toward the drink station, her heart still pounding. The restaurant was still buzzing from their arrival. Other waiters whispered in the corner, some sneaking glances at the table, others pulling out their phones to text friends. "Can you believe this? Trump's here. I wonder if she's going to mess up." Emily ignored the chatter. She had a job to do. When she returned with their drinks, Trump looked up. "What's your name?" She hesitated, caught off guard. Most customers never asked. "Emily, sir," Trump nodded. Nice to meet you, Emily. You've been working here long? She blinked. Was he making small talk? About 3 years, sir. Barron looked up. Do you like it? Emily hesitated. That was a complicated question. But she smiled and said what she always said. It pays the bills. Trump chuckled. Honest answer. I like that. As they placed their orders, Emily relaxed a little. The meal went smoothly. Barron was quiet but always said thank you when she refilled his glass. Trump was focused on his meal but never rude or impatient. By the time she brought the check, she felt a small sense of relief. She had made it through. Or so she thought, because when she picked up the receipt, her entire world stopped. Written on the check was a handwritten note. Her hands started trembling as she read it. And then the tears came. Emily's fingers trembled as she picked up the receipt. At first, she thought she was imagining things. A handwritten note from Donald Trump? Her heart pounded as her eyes skimmed over the words. Hard work should be rewarded. I hope this helps. Below the note, her breath caught in her throat. A tip for $10,000. She stared at the number, her mind struggling to process it. Surely this was a mistake. Her hands clenched around the check as her legs wobbled beneath her. Her throat tightened, and before she could stop it, tears welled up in her eyes. This couldn't be real. This wasn't just a big tip. This was life-changing. Her vision blurred as she blinked away the tears, her chest rising and falling rapidly. The weight of months, no years of struggle, crashed down on her all at once. The unpaid bills, the nights spent awake, wondering if she'd have enough for rent, the doctor's visits for Lily that she had to keep postponing. She covered her mouth with her hand, trying to hold back a sob. The restaurant had grown eerily silent. A few nearby customers had noticed her reaction. Her co-workers exchanged confused glances, whispering among themselves. Finally, she forced herself to look up. Trump was watching her, his expression unreadable. Barron, too, had noticed her reaction, and for the first time that night, his reserved demeanor cracked just a little. He looked at his father, then back at Emily, curiosity in his young eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I don't know what to say. Trump gave a small nod, as if he understood exactly what she was feeling. Then don't say anything. Just take care of your family. Emily let out a soft sob, her shoulders shaking. She clutched the check like it was the most precious thing in the world. The weight of this moment wasn't lost on her. She had spent years breaking her back, smiling through exhaustion, pushing forward even when the world seemed impossible. And now, someone had finally seen her. Someone had acknowledged her struggle. A few customers nearby, realizing what had happened, started clapping. It started as a quiet murmur before spreading across the restaurant. Some people smiled, others wiped at their own eyes, touched by what they had just witnessed. Emily's manager rushed over, eyes wide in disbelief. Emily, what? He saw the check in her shaking hands and gasped. Oh my God, is this real? She could only nod. Trump stood up, adjusting his suit. Hard work deserves to be rewarded. His voice was firm but kind. You've earned it. Emily wanted to throw her arms around him in gratitude, but she held back, not sure what was appropriate. Instead, she wiped her tears and folded the check carefully, like it was the most valuable thing in the world. Finally, she looked at Barron, who had remained quiet throughout the whole exchange. He tilted his head slightly, observing her reaction. Then, in a rare moment, he smiled. And that's when Emily realized this wasn't just about money. It was about kindness, about recognizing hard work, about hope. Tonight, her life had changed, and it all started with one note on a check. For a moment, Emily could only stand there, gripping the check with trembling hands. The world around her seemed to fade. The sounds of the restaurant, the clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations became distant, muffled by the pounding of her own heartbeat. Then, a voice broke the silence. "What happened?" one of her co-workers whispered, stepping closer. Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she simply held up the check, the bold number clear for everyone to see. There was a beat of silence, and then gasps. $10,000, someone blurted out. A ripple of shock spread through the restaurant. Customers craned their necks to get a look. A few waiters, still holding trays of food, stopped mid-step, their eyes wide. "No way! That can't be real." Emily nodded slowly, tears still pooling in her eyes. "It's real. He left it for me." Her manager, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion, stared at the check in disbelief. He had worked in restaurants for decades, seen generous tips before, but nothing like this. Then someone started clapping. It was a lone customer at the bar, but the sound quickly spread. Soon, the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Some people cheered, others simply smiled, nodding in approval. Emily looked toward Trump, who had now risen from his seat, buttoning his jacket. He didn't seem fazed by the reaction at all. She wiped her eyes and took a shaky step forward. "I don't know how to thank you for this." Trump simply gave a small nod. "Take care of your family. That's all the thanks I need." Emily covered her mouth, overwhelmed again. Barron, still standing beside his father, watched her with quiet curiosity. And then, with a soft smile, he said something she never expected. "You deserve it." And just like that, Emily broke down in tears again. The night felt like a dream. Emily still couldn't believe it. $10,000. She walked home with the check clutched tightly in her hands, afraid that if she let go, it would vanish. Was this real? Could this really be happening to her? When she stepped through the door of her small apartment, she heard a soft voice. "Mommy." Emily turned to see her 6-year-old daughter Lily rubbing her sleepy eyes. Emily knelt down, pulling Lily into a tight hug, tears spilling down her cheeks again. "Baby, everything is going to be okay now." Lily tilted her head. "Did something good happen?" Emily let out a soft laugh, holding up the check. "Something amazing happened." The next morning, Emily didn't waste a second. She made the first doctor's appointment Lily had needed for months. For the first time in forever, she didn't have to worry about whether she could afford it. When they walked into the clinic, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: relief. She also paid off months of overdue bills, ensuring they wouldn't have to live in fear of losing their home. For the first time, she could breathe. At work, her co-workers greeted her with smiles and hugs. The entire restaurant was still buzzing about what had happened. "You deserved this, Emily," one of the waiters told her. She smiled, but deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't just about money. It was about being seen, being appreciated. And all because one man and one unexpected act of kindness changed everything. And if you love stories of kindness, second chances, and life-changing moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.